This is the most current 2025 version of Adobe Camera Raw to convert images to black and white or grayscale for importing into or opening into Photoshop to perform the colorizing assignment. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and crop my image a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of use the rule of thirds to kind of find an interesting focal point. And here we go. Get out of the crop tool. So on the previous videos, the tools are oriented a little differently, and they function exactly the same, but basically the layout is a little bit different. I'm going to go back to the edit option here, so you can see my image has been cropped in a little tighter. And I'm just going to work top down. So my approach typically is make the adjustments to the image overall first in color, and then convert to black and white or grayscale, and then fine tune it from there. So here, if I want, I can go to my light option here where it's got exposure, contrast, and so on. I can click on the auto button to kind of give me a head start. And so it lightens everything up, so we can kind of do a before and after, and it's almost like it read my mind. It actually made everything a little bit lighter and brought out the colors and some of the texture and whatnot. And so I'm going to leave it at that. If you need to make fine-tuning adjustments from there, you can. Just move the sliders as you need. If I want to lower the highlights a little bit, bring those down, I can do that. Open up the shadows. And I always kind of push the sliders a little bit further than, they might need to go, because it allows me to see what I'm actually changing. So that looks pretty good like that. Good. From there, I'll go to, you can go to the color tab. It's not as critical, but you can do as shot, auto. So it's an auto color or white balance. So you can see here, there's a little on the green side, and it went a little bit more magenta. So again, we were using almost shade, so window light we were using. So it's going to warm it up a little bit. And so that looks pretty good. Okay, cool. And from there, I'm just going to go ahead and convert it to black and white. Now you can go back in and make other adjustments here as need be. But up here, I'm going to click on the B&W or black and white option. And then once you do that, and so let me undo that real quick. Notice that I'm in color mode and I have color mixer here. If I click on black and white, it goes to black and white mixer. And what that allows us to do is kind of increase or decrease the brightness of specific colors within a color range. And so you can click on auto, which gives you the Photoshop AI conversion here. And then you can fine tune it from there. So we know that the avocados were green and the background was green. So if I slide this, you can kind of see what's become, darker or lighter. Okay, and so the goal when you're creating these black and white images is to have areas from light to dark to light to dark to light to dark. So you create this interest in your image. If everything's dark, 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 or light, 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 it won't be as interesting. So if I move these sliders, if there's no magenta in my image, it won't have any effect. Same with purple, maybe some blues somewhere, aquas. See, there's a little bit of aqua in that background. We know the greens are being affected. How about yellows? Ooh, yellow, green. So you can kind of push and pull. Oranges kind of a little bit, because I think because of the white balance we set, added a little bit of yellow orange to the overall scene, and then reds a little bit. You can see it right here in the shadow area there. So all in all, that looks pretty good. If you want to experiment, in the previous video I mentioned snapshots, and so right here is our snapshot option. So in other words, you can create snapshots of the current setting. So I'm going to create a new snapshot here and click on that. So we'll call that EW1. Okay, cool. Now if I wanted to, let's go back to the edit option up here. If I went and reset everything, and let's go ahead and we'll turn this back, all that back to normal or 0. So I'm resetting everything. I could have done this at the beginning, which probably would have been a good idea. Let me change that real quick. Auto as shots. Okay. Cool. I'm just making some quick changes. Effects, same deal, 0. Okay, cool. So now it's kind of basically back to where we started. Let's go back to the snapshot option here. Click on this. And then I would go with before. And now that I see it, what happened was, inadvertently, when I click reset, it reset everything. So I'm unfortunately going to have to go back to these other settings. So that's good. White balance, we'll let it do auto, or what did I say, shade. That's cool. So basically I was converting it back to, reverting it back to the beginning. So it got rid of my first snapshot. But here we are. Let's go ahead and make a new snapshot, and let's call that, click on this little icon, call it color 1. Go back to the edit, click on B and W or black and white, and again we can go back in here and click on auto. Boom, that's fine. Click another snapshot right here, and we'll call it BW1. Cool. Okay, so you can see if I click on before, no changes. You know, when I first open it, here's my color version. So it's a good way to save like iterations of the file so that you can always go back to it. Okay, so let's just stick with this one right now because this is the colorizing portion, or the actually conversion portion for the assignment. I'm going to go back to edit here, click on that, we're good to go, and that's pretty much it. If you click on done, it'll save those changes, but it won't open in Photoshop. So we do need to click on the open button. And just so you know, open as object or open as copy. I'm just going to click on open. We will get to some of these other options down the line, but right now, click on open, and it will open up in Photoshop. And you can see here, let me make my screen a little bit more user-friendly. And so here are our images in Photoshop, okay? Now, one of the things I did mention is in class is that you need to be in RGB mode to be able to actually add color to the image. So remember, we created a new layer. So in the lower right-hand corner, I'm down here, create a new layer, and let's call it something. Click on the color. Let's pick like this. Well, let's pick green because it's green avocados. So I'm going to pick a saturated green, click OK, and then when I paint, notice it comes out gray. It's because the image is in grayscale mode. So if you look right up here, you'll see it says gray 16. What that means is it's grayscale mode at 16 bits per channel. The way to convert that is to go under the image mode menu item, and we go down to RGB color. You can see here it's 16-bit. You can leave it 16-bit if you want. You can go to 8-bit if you prefer. If you go to 8-bit, it will reduce the file size a bit. But I'm going to go to RGB color. We don't want to flatten because once we've created layers, we want to keep those layers so we don't flatten the image. So don't flatten. And now you can see our green is here. So let's double click the name here, call it green. Get in the habit of naming your layers. Right off the bat, I'm just going to leave the blending mode and the opacity alone. Got my paintbrush over here, letter B for brush. And then I'm going to use the right bracket to make the brush bigger, or I use the left bracket to make it smaller. So in this case, I'm just going to make it, larger, and I can always erase. So here, and it allows me to go in and see exactly what I'm working on. Now remember the brush at the top here, we have brush options. We have our size, which is the diameter of the brush, and then the hardness, how soft the brush is. And just to illustrate again, 0 hardness looks like a soft little cotton ball. 100% hardness looks very distinct, sharp edges. So if our image has any blur, depth of field in it, we want to not use 100%. We want to dial it into what we think looks best. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So I'm just going to go ahead and make my brush bigger and small. The smaller the brush, the more dabbing you're going to do, and you'll see the edge of the brush. It won't be super clean. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we can always get it a little wider here, but let's change the blending mode. Remember the ones I mentioned: multiply will darken, screen will lighten, overlay will do a little combo deal, lighten and darken, and then color will just colorize. So that's usually my go-to, but if I need to, I will change it to something else, like maybe overlay or multiply. I'm going to leave it color for now. It looks pretty good. And then again, you can lower the opacity. So each layer has a blending mode here and opacity. So I'm going to dial that back a little bit, just to make that one avocado a little tinted, a little stand out. Okay, again, you can zoom in and you can fine tune the edges. So I'm going to make my brush a little smaller. You can just pick up the little edges that you may have missed the first time. There we go. And down here, maybe a little bit extra. Again, it's a soft edge of the avocado, and kind of I'm using a soft edge brush. Now notice here, we'll zoom in, we've got a little extra. The little snap shouldn't have the green like that, looks kind of funky. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the eraser tool, which is E for eraser, and I'm just going to use a small brush and then remove that. If you take too much off, you can either undo it or paint it back in. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So from here, you're just going to, file, save. Since it's a raw file, it won't save over a raw file. You can see it's CR2 extension here. So what it will do though is pop up the Save As dialog box, and then we can click, it should automatically come up as Photoshop, but pick the Photoshop on top, click Save, and now you're all set. And I just want to point out, remember earlier it said gray 16, now it says RGB 16, which is the RGB color mode to allow us to paint color on top of our layers, or in our layers. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to leave you at that. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. But basically repeat those steps for each individual color to help colorize your image. Each color, each unique color, should be on its own color layer. Okay, so keep that in mind. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you soon.